You made it through security. Shoes back on, laptop packed away. You're walking toward your gate feeling that familiar relief of clearing the checkpoint without delays. The hard part is over, right? Wrong. In 2025, more passengers are losing their flights at the gate than at security. Not because of overbooking, not because of weather delays, but because of mistakes they're making in the final 30 minutes before departure. Airlines have implemented new gate protocols that turn innocent behaviors into flight-losing errors. Things you've done at gates for years without thinking twice are now grounds for being denied boarding. And the worst part? Most travelers don't realize they're making these mistakes until a gate agent is explaining why they can't board their flight. Changes that happen quietly, without announcements, without updates to airline websites or apps. Rules that experienced travelers are discovering the hard way. Stick around, because mistake number 3 has cost more business travelers their flights than any mechanical delay in 2025. It's something that 90% of frequent flyers do automatically without realizing it's now prohibited. Let's jump in. Mistake number 8, sitting in the wrong gate area. You arrive at your gate 45 minutes early, but all the seats near the boarding podium are taken. So you find a spot one gate over where there's plenty of room. You can still hear announcements, still see the departure board. You're being smart and flexible. That seating choice just cost you your flight. Airlines now require passengers to remain within the designated gate perimeter during the final hour before departure. Sitting at adjacent gates, even if they're empty, violates their new passenger monitoring protocols. Here's what most people have no idea about. Gate agents scan seating areas 30 minutes before boarding to verify passenger presence. If you're not in the designated zone, you get marked as absent in their system. And once you're marked absent, getting back on the passenger list requires supervisor override that can take 20 to 30 minutes to process. One consultant flying from Dallas to Phoenix learned this the hard way. She sat one gate over because her actual gate was crowded and noisy. When boarding started, she walked over and tried to scan her pass. "System shows you as absent," the gate agent said. "You'll need to speak with a supervisor." The supervisor was dealing with another issue. By the time they processed her override request, they'd already closed the boarding door. She'd been 50 feet away from her gate the entire time, cost her a $400 same-day rebooking fee, and missed an important client meeting. Stay within your actual gate seating area, even if it's crowded or uncomfortable. The convenience of finding better seats isn't worth the risk of being marked absent. Don't say we didn't warn you. Mistake number 7, using bathroom during critical window. You need to use the restroom. It's 25 minutes before boarding and you want to take care of business before getting on the plane. The bathroom is just around the corner. You'll be back in 5 minutes. That bathroom trip just triggered passenger absence protocols. Airlines now monitor gate areas during the 30-minute pre-boarding critical period. When passengers leave the gate vicinity during this window, they get flagged in the system as potentially absent. And the worst part? Gate agents don't announce when the critical period begins. Most passengers have no idea they're now required to stay put. Here's what catches everyone. Even if you're back before boarding starts, the system may have already marked you as absent. Getting that status change requires manual intervention that delays your boarding. This next case will shock you. A marketing director flying from Miami to New York stepped out to use the bathroom 20 minutes before her boarding group was called. She was gone for 4 minutes total. When she returned, she could see other passengers from her boarding group already in line, but when she tried to scan her boarding pass, it wouldn't work. "System shows you left the gate area during the critical period," the agent explained. "I need to manually verify your status." The manual verification process took 15 minutes. Her boarding group had already finished by the time she was cleared to board. She made the flight, but barely, and only because another passenger volunteered to wait for a later flight. Handle bathroom needs either more than 45 minutes before boarding or hold it until you're on the plane. The 30-minute window before boarding is now a no-travel zone. Your biological needs can cost you your flight if the timing is wrong. Ever lost a flight because of something you thought was completely normal? Drop your story in the comments. We're building a case file on these silent rule changes. Mistake number 6, charging devices at wrong locations. Your phone battery is dying, so you look for the nearest outlet to plug in your charger. Find one at an adjacent gate, plug in, and stay connected while you wait for your boarding call. That charging location just flagged you as absent from your assigned gate. Airlines' new passenger tracking systems monitor power outlet usage to determine passenger locations. When you're charging at outlets outside your designated gate area, you get marked as not present for boarding purposes. Here's what most travelers miss. It's not enough to be within sight of your gate. You have to be using resources within your gate's designated area to maintain present status in their monitoring system. And the enforcement is getting stricter every month. One tech executive flying from Seattle to Chicago found an outlet at the gate next to his and settled in to charge his laptop. He could see his gate clearly, hear all the announcements, even made eye contact with the gate agents. When his boarding group was called, he walked over and tried to scan his pass. The system showed him as absent during critical monitoring period. "You were charging at gate B7, the agent said, looking at her screen. "Your flight is at gate B5. System shows you as not present." He pointed out that he'd been 15 feet away the entire time. Didn't matter. The system flagged him as absent, and getting that corrected required supervisor approval. He made his flight, but only after a 20-minute delay and some very unhappy gate agents. Only use charging outlets within your assigned gate seating area. The power convenience isn't worth the risk of being marked absent by automated tracking systems. Most people have no idea that where you charge your devices affects your boarding eligibility. Mistake number 5. Checking flight status too often. You're monitoring your flight, opening the airline app every few minutes to check for gate changes, delays, or updates. You're being a responsible traveler, staying informed about your flight status. That frequent app usage just triggered behavioral monitoring alerts. Airlines now flag passengers who check flight information excessively during the final hour before departure. More than 3 app opens in 30 minutes gets you marked for additional scrutiny. Here's what they're watching for. Passengers who might be coordinating with others, gathering intelligence about flight operations, or exhibiting anxiety behaviors that could indicate security risks. And the worst part? Different airlines have different thresholds for what constitutes excessive monitoring. This next detail will blow your mind. A sales manager flying from Atlanta to Los Angeles checked his airline app 7 times in 20 minutes because he was nervous about making a tight connection. Each check was logged in his passenger profile. When boarding began, gate agents pulled him aside for additional questioning about his unusual flight monitoring behavior. System shows elevated app usage consistent with operational intelligence gathering, the agent explained. "We need to verify your travel intentions." The questioning process took 25 minutes. By the time they cleared him for boarding, the flight was already backing away from the gate. He missed his connection and had to pay $600 to rebook on a later flight, all because he was trying to stay informed about his travel plans. Limit your flight status checks to once when you arrive at the gate and once about 15 minutes before boarding. Your anxiety about flight information is being monitored and can be used against you. Don't say we didn't warn you. Mistake number 4. Early boarding line formation. You see other passengers starting to gather near the boarding area. Your group hasn't been called yet, but you want to be ready. So you join the informal line that's forming, positioning yourself for efficient boarding when your group is announced. That early line positioning just violated boarding sequence protocols. Airlines now strictly enforce boarding group discipline. Standing in line before your group is called gets you marked as non-compliant with boarding procedures and can result in boarding denial. Here's what catches experienced travelers. The informal pre-boarding gathering that used to be normal is now classified as boarding disruption behavior. Gate agents are trained to identify passengers who position themselves for boarding before their group is called and mark them for disciplinary action. This next case is unbelievable. A frequent flyer with elite status flying from Phoenix to Denver saw other passengers gathering near the boarding podium. He joined them, thinking it was the normal pre-boarding routine he'd done hundreds of times. When his actual boarding group was called 10 minutes later, he approached the scanner. The agent stopped him. "System shows you attempted to board out of sequence," she said. "You were in the boarding area before your group was announced." He explained that he was just waiting with other passengers, not actually trying to board early. Didn't matter. The system had logged his early positioning as non-compliant behavior. He was moved to the final boarding group as punishment, despite having priority status. His overhead bin space was gone by the time he got on the plane. 20 years of elite status couldn't override the algorithmic behavioral monitoring system. Stay seated until your boarding group is actually called. Don't gather. Don't line up. Don't position yourself near the boarding area until you hear your specific group announced. Your boarding efficiency instincts are now working against you. Mistake number 3, wrong way to handle boarding pass issues. Your boarding pass won't scan. The barcode is smudged, or your phone screen is cracked, or the app is glitching. So you ask the gate agent for help, explain the technical issue, and request assistance. That help request just marked you as a problematic passenger. Gate agents are now trained to flag travelers who can't present functional boarding documents as potential security risks. Technical issues with boarding passes trigger additional verification procedures that can prevent you from boarding. This mistake has cost more business travelers their flights than any mechanical delay in 2025. Here's what most people don't realize. Gate agents no longer have discretion to quickly resolve boarding pass issues. Every document problem requires supervisor approval and additional identity verification. And the verification process takes a minimum of 15 minutes, often longer if supervisors are busy with other issues. One project manager flying from Chicago to Miami had his phone die right before boarding. His digital boarding pass was gone, and he needed to get a paper pass printed. Simple request, right? Wrong. Non-functional boarding documents require security verification, the gate agent explained. You'll need to wait for a supervisor. The supervisor was dealing with an overbooked flight at another gate. 25 minutes later, when they finally printed his new boarding pass, the flight was already taxiing away from the gate. He'd had a valid ticket the entire time. A dead phone battery cost him his flight and a $500 rebooking fee. The most frustrating part? The gate agent told him this was standard procedure now for any boarding pass issues, but there's no mention of this policy in any airline communications. Have multiple backup boarding passes ready. Screenshot on your phone, printed copy in your bag, saved to your airline app offline mode. Don't rely on a single digital copy that can fail at the worst possible moment. Your technology convenience can become a boarding liability if it doesn't work perfectly. Most business travelers have no idea that boarding pass technical issues now trigger security protocols instead of simple customer service. Mistake number 2. Interacting with other passengers. Someone near your gate is struggling. Elderly passenger can't figure out the gate change announcement. Family with young children looks confused about boarding procedures. Business traveler is having trouble with the airline app, so you offer to help. You're being a decent human being, right? That helpful interaction just flagged both of you for intensive behavioral monitoring. Airlines now track passenger-to-passenger interactions in gate areas as potential coordination activity. When travelers who don't appear to know each other start sharing information or providing assistance, it triggers security alerts. Here's what most people have no idea about. Gate agents are trained to watch for unusual passenger cooperation as a sign of possible coordinated activities or security threats. And once you're flagged for suspicious interaction, the scrutiny follows you onto the plane and potentially onto future flights. This next revelation will shock you. A retired teacher flying from Boston to Orlando helped a young mother understand a gate change announcement. Both women were pulled aside before boarding for questioning about their relationship and coordination activities. The questioning process revealed they were complete strangers who'd never met before that moment. But the behavioral monitoring system had logged their interaction as potential coordination between unrelated passengers. Both women were subjected to additional baggage searches and delayed boarding procedures that took 30 minutes. The mother missed her connection because of the delay. Being helpful to a stranger got both of them flagged as potential security risks. Don't interact with other passengers in gate areas. Don't offer assistance. Don't share information. Don't engage in conversations with people you don't know. Your kindness can cost both you and the person you're helping significant delays and intensive scrutiny. This mistake is so serious because it creates multiple passenger profiles that get linked in the airline's behavioral monitoring database. Mistake number 1. Looking back after boarding. You've successfully boarded the plane, found your seat, stowed your carry-on, settled in for the flight. But then you realize you might have left something at the gate, or you want to see if a delayed passenger made it onto the flight. So you look back toward the boarding area through the aircraft door. That backward glance just activated the most serious gate protocol violation of all. Flight crews are trained to identify passengers who exhibit post-boarding surveillance behavior. When travelers turn to observe gate operations or boarding procedures after being seated, it triggers immediate security response protocols. Here's why this is the most serious mistake. Passengers who look back at gate operations after boarding are classified as potential threats conducting reconnaissance on security procedures. The response isn't handled by gate agent. It involves flight crew, air marshals, and potentially law enforcement. One business consultant flying from Denver to Atlanta boarded normally, found his seat, then looked back to see if his colleague from another flight was boarding behind him. That look back was observed by a flight attendant who immediately notified the captain. Within minutes, an air marshal approached his seat. "Sir, we need you to come with us," the marshal said quietly. "There's been a security concern." He was removed from the aircraft, questioned for 45 minutes about his surveillance behavior, and ultimately denied boarding on any flight for the rest of the day pending a full security review. His colleague never showed up. He was on a different flight entirely. A simple look back to check for a friend cost him his flight and triggered a federal security investigation. And the worst part? The security procedures for post-boarding surveillance behavior are classified, so passengers aren't warned about this policy anywhere in airline communications. Once you're on the plane, keep your eyes forward. Don't look back at the gate. Don't observe boarding procedures. Don't watch gate operations. Your curiosity about what's happening behind you can trigger the most serious security response protocols in aviation. This final mistake is so critical because it can result in no-fly list placement, not just missed flights. The system behind the mistakes. Here's what connects all of these flight-losing errors. Airlines have implemented comprehensive behavioral monitoring systems that track passenger actions from the moment you arrive at the gate until the aircraft door closes. Every movement, every interaction, every device usage creates data points in your passenger profile that algorithms analyze for compliance and security risks. These systems are designed to identify and eliminate any behavior that deviates from their model of normal passenger conduct. The problem is that normal behavior changes constantly based on new airline policies, but passengers aren't informed about what the current behavioral expectations are. What seemed like good travel practices last year are now grounds for boarding denial in 2025. And here's the key insight most travelers miss. These monitoring systems prioritize false positives over false negatives. They'd rather deny boarding to innocent passengers than risk allowing potential security threats onto aircraft. Your individual circumstances, good intentions, or years of trouble-free travel history don't factor into algorithmic decision-making. The system rewards predictable, compliant, isolated passenger behavior and punishes anything that looks unusual, helpful, or proactive. What the airlines aren't telling you. These behavioral monitoring changes were implemented without passenger notification because airlines classify them as operational security enhancements rather than policy changes. Most travelers are discovering these new requirements when they violate them, not through advanced communication. The behavioral expectations have become significantly more restrictive, but the restrictions aren't documented in customer-facing materials. Gate agents are enforcing policies they can't fully explain to passengers who had no way of knowing the rules existed. The result is a travel environment where experienced passengers are losing flights due to behaviors that were perfectly acceptable for years. The real cost. These undocumented behavioral requirements are costing travelers thousands of dollars in missed flights and rebooking fees. Business travelers are missing critical meetings because they made innocent mistakes at gates. Families are having vacations disrupted by behavioral policies they never knew existed. Frequent flyers are losing elite status benefits because algorithmic systems override human judgment. The financial impact goes beyond direct travel costs. Lost business opportunities, missed family events, and damaged professional relationships are creating massive hidden costs for travelers who can't prepare for rules they don't know exist. Final warning. The most important thing to understand is that these behavioral monitoring systems are becoming more sensitive, not more forgiving. Airlines are updating passenger behavior algorithms monthly. Actions that were acceptable last month might trigger alerts this month. The tolerance for individual variation is decreasing as airlines prioritize security theater over passenger convenience. Your best strategy is to minimize all interactions, movements, and activities while in gate areas. Don't help other passengers. Don't move between locations. Don't check flight information repeatedly. Don't position yourself for boarding efficiency. Don't look back once you've boarded. The goal isn't to be a good traveler or a helpful person. The goal is to be an invisible, compliant data point that matches their algorithmic expectations perfectly. If you've lost a flight because of mistakes you didn't know you were making at the gate, drop your story in the comments below. We're documenting these cases and tracking the pattern of undocumented policy changes. Remember, they changed how gates work without telling you. Stay invisible. Stay compliant. Stay seated. Don't say we didn't warn you.